Hello. If you work in pro audio, the attitude to the audiophile world is usually one of live and let live. They don't tend to cross paths. It's like the pro audio world are some kind of high elves.
They're taking the hobbits to Isengard!
Sitting in the castle of genuine knowledge, and audiophiles are like some kind of twisted goblin who lives in a cave and feeds off of lies. And for the most part, I think that's kind of a safe and sensible analysis of what's going on. But as the audiophile world starts to change and the goals of the two start to sort of meet in the middle, there are some products that are crossing over. When I was auditioning near-field monitors recently, I tried everything imaginable in pro audio land, and there's plenty of excellent choices there. I was really looking for something that was a three-way design, just for the improved sort of clarity and separation of frequency bands. But the problem I had is that given the particular dimensions of the space that I'm in, I needed them to be pretty close to me. So giving enough distance for the three drivers to meet sonically was quite a challenge, where I'd have to move this desk forward. I'd probably have to stand mount them. This is a motorized desk that goes up and down and allows me to stand and work. So I wouldn't be able to do that anymore unless I got motorized stands, and that's really, really expensive. Having seen the review in Sound on Sound, go and buy it, check it out and subscribe to it, of the KEF LS50 and LS50 wireless, I was very interested in the Unique driver array. But these speakers are marketed at audiophiles, as it were, consumer hi-fi, not professional users. When it comes to getting a three-way setup that you can use in very close proximity as a true near field, this Unique driver setup, it's perfectly coincident coaxial driver setup for the treble and the mid-range. So I guess the main question people are going to have is, what do they sound like? The overwhelming sense when listening to these for me is just clarity. There's incredibly low distortion. There's sense of space in the soundstage is very accurate. Frequency balance wise, there's a lot of treble extension, but it isn't so much that it irritates my ears, which is something that I do find with some tweeters, that I can find them quite aggravating over long periods of time. These aren't like that. Having said that, they are incredibly true, dynamic and accurate monitors, so there's going to be a lot of mixes that you're going to have enjoyed listening to on a very sort of smooth, flattering set of speakers, where you will go, oh god, my favourite record sounds like now. These are as accurate a near-field monitor as I've experienced in a long time, and I really enjoy working on them for long periods of time, which I think is a very important thing if you're going to live with the speaker day to day for work and for pleasure. One of the things that puts people off this kind of speaker in the pro audio world is the fact they're passive. Most speakers in pro audio are active. In fact, KEF with their LS50 and LS50 wireless, the wireless version is an active version with amplifiers designed specifically for those drivers, and it's got DSP correction in it for phase equalization, that kind of thing. So it is preferable to have active speakers in the sense that you can do more than you ever could with just a power amp. The equalization application can be designed precisely to correct for any particular shortcomings of that acoustic design. But that said, I've got these running off a Bryston 5B power amp, which is a good amp. It's a reasonably high-end piece of kit, but it's not bank-breaking. There's no shortcoming to my ears. Perhaps you could gain a few percent in quality by making an active version of these. You could certainly gain a lot more studio features that studio users would like, such as low and high frequency shelving to help equalize for room positioning. As I say, some form of DSP phase and equalization correction built in to flatten the response of the speakers even more. But as they are, they're pretty phenomenally flat. I think you need a lot of watts to make these come to life and to use them for studio use, where the dynamic range that you're going to be working with is far higher than listeners at home who are going to be working usually with quite heavily compressed and limited music. I chose a Bryston because it's a known factor. It's got enormous toroidal power transformers for each channel individually, but you could use plenty of other things, I think. To be honest, I'd probably go for something that can deliver in the realm of 200 watts to 4 ohms, just because you want as much power overhead as you can have if you're going to be knocking big kick drums, since you're going to need big amplifiers that can deliver a lot of juice on demand and aren't going to sort of, crap out and start to lose dynamic range. So give it a lot of watts. Everything up to 80 hertz is coming out of a 250 watt 10-inch subwoofer underneath the desk. So the bass drivers on those aren't working very hard at all. From the KEF LS50 wireless, we know that KEF can design an integrated amplifier system that also includes DSP correction for phase, frequency response, all these kind of things. And it would be lovely to hear that with a set of KEF R3s. I guess depending on your tastes, another downside could be that these are definitely consumer looks. I mean, you don't see a lot of piano black in studios. But then again, I think that makes it kind of cool. It's a little bit different. The other two options are even more pushing the boundaries of taste, I think, depending on how you feel about that sort of thing. One of them is a sort of shiny white, and the other one, I quite like the other one. It's sort of 70s looking light wood, walnut, I believe, with really odd metallic peach coloured cones. That was a step too far for me, so I went with piano black. Lastly, they're rear ported, so you're probably going to want to put some kind of bass trapping behind them if they're reasonably close to wall. That's what I've got here. Those are wood panels with rock wool in. They're just going to soak up a little bit of the low end that comes out the back of the speakers. KEF do provide you with foam bungs to shove in the holes, and these bungs have like a donut shape, so you can push out the middle of them and make a half bung, even though they do cut off a little bit of the low end, which you would have thought would be good considering I'm using a sub. It just doesn't sound as good to me. So if you want to keep them as clean, smooth and low distortion as possible, leave the covers off, don't bung up the backs of them, just kind of bass trap behind them, and they're going to sound nice and smooth. So who's not going to want to use a speaker like this? Well, some people argue that these are inconvenient because they're passive, because, you just plug in an XLR and go with actives. I didn't find this really that much less convenient. I went and bought the amp that everyone uses in studios, a Bryston, used some copper 16 AWG, 16 American wire gauge cable, screwed that into the terminals, turned it on, and now I use them. And that's the last time I've touched any of those cables. So it's not really inconvenient. So is there a moral to the story? Well, I've been in pro audio for years and years. It's a relatively honest industry, I think, pro audio, compared to most, and certainly compared to the audiophile consumer world, where people genuinely sell things that do not do anything for tens of thousands of pounds. So there is still a difference there, jokes about orcs and elves aside, between what's marketed and why. But at the end of the day, you have to trust your ears. Go and look up KEF's white papers, the research that they've done and the designs that they've made. They're not playing games and trying to sell you snake oil. These are people who genuinely care about audio reproduction and have been innovating in this area for years. They're very well respected and they've made an excellent product. The market that's aimed at doesn't change the quality of the product. The only thing I really like to see that isn't in existence is a pro audio version of the KEF R3s. That doesn't mean they need to make any changes to the speaker themselves, but they need to add active amplification. They need to have it so you can plug an IEC into the back of each of the speakers, an XLR input into the back of each of the speakers. And if they're going to go digital, SPDIF or AES3 EBU inputs is another option too, and maybe a networking cable to carry signal between the two. But also the usuals, DSP, phase and frequency correction, 3 different amplifiers separately powering each section. That would be an expensive product, but I think that given the quality of these speakers already, it's something that in the pro audio world people would listen to, and when they had a chance to listen to it, would be sort of converted to how good they are. Anyway, I hope you really enjoyed listening to me talk about some speakers for some minutes. If you have, subscribe, like or dislike, whichever you like. Go and get yourself a pair to listen to. I went to a Seven Oaks store to have a listen to some of them. They were quite happy to carry them down some stairs and set them up for me. So you'll find lots of accommodating people nearby. Go and have a listen and see what you think. You might be surprised. Thanks.